Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Rotoworld Football Show on Tuesday, June 10th, 2025. I am Patrick Daugherty, joined, as always, by Mr. Denny Carter, where we are going to break down the latest NFL news with fantasy football implications. Nick Chubb, one of the biggest names in fantasy history, who might not even make the team on this new team, the Houston Texans. Not a great fit, especially if you, like me, traded for Woody Marks in your Dynasty rookie draft. Not a big fan of the Chubb move. JSN, Denny, reportedly on the perimeter more. Sometimes you might think that's good. You apparently think it's very, very bad.
No, it's bad.
We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about Arthur Smith. We didn't get to talk a ton about the Aaron Rodgers thing last week. It happened while we were on air. We're going to break down a little and more in depth the Arthur Smith, Aaron Rodgers fit, how that might affect DK Metcalf. What would a Baker bump, Denny, mean for Trevor Lawrence? I remember what I wrote here. I have no idea what I was even trying to get at. No, but they've been talking up Trevor Lawrence and, Liam Coen. He was part of the Baker bump last year. If we could get Trevor Lawrence to even Baker Mayfield level, what might that mean in fantasy? Jaylen Wright, Rashod Bateman, the Denny's article on mid-round wide receiver values, one of his favorite topics, near and dear to his heart. Denny, one of our favorite topics, though, is, of course, complaining about the modern NBA. I was struck. I'm watching every game still. I still love the NBA. I mean, I'm watching an NBA Finals where I feel like, has there ever been an NBA Finals where neither team has an inside game? Like, I would like to see a single post up. Like, listen, I like splash threes, but I would like to see a single post up. Not happening. To the point where, Denny, something happened in game 2 that passed without comment, and you thought it had
without comment, without replay, as if it didn't happen. I felt, Pat, like I was kind of losing my mind. So Pacers were down about, I think, 20 on the dot in the second half.
By the way, I turned off game 2. I'm just assuming they came back and won, and they're up 2-0, right?
They did not. Tyrese Halliburton decided to take the day off. Luckily for the Thunder. But so Miles Turner, who is the center for the Pacers, he gets the ball at the top of the key and takes one step and delivers the most vicious, violent, thunderous dunk maybe that I've ever seen in my life. Bodies are flying everywhere. Miles Turner is losing his mind afterward. Rightfully so. One of the best dunks ever that I've seen. It goes without comment. The announcers don't even notice it. There is no replay. And I just thought, okay, so officially, I've suspected for a while. We talked about it. The dunk is not cool anymore, right? It's not cool to dunk.
It's not cool. Apparently, I think it's part of it's like an injury risk. They don't want them dunking.
Right. So the analytics say don't dunk.
Don't.
Right. And so even guys who can sky 3-4 feet above the rim, they just lay it up right on a fast break now. Right.
The fast break dunk, you get like 2 or 3 a year now.
Everything's got to be as boring as possible. And so Miles Turner delivers one exciting play, and it just goes by. It just kind of just wafts on by, and no one says anything. I was actually lying in bed, and I'm spazzing out. Oh my goodness! Oh, my dog's jumping off of me. He's running. He's going under the bed. I'm like, this is the most amazing dunk I've ever seen. And anyway, I really wish that I had seen a replay.
To lend credence to your point, I have not seen a replay of this dunk or like a single tweet about it. Denny, many are saying it didn't happen and that you were laying in bed and
maybe I was dreaming,
hallucinating, and had already fallen asleep. Miles Turner did no such thing.
Maybe I was dreaming about the last NBA dunk.
The last NBA, I will say, we're not going to talk about the broadcast. It's been better in the past, is what I'll say. And they're kind of struggling. And we're not even getting to, by the way, the presentation of the whole finals, that including the league. Like, we need a logo. We need a trophy on the court. Give us a trophy on the court. ESPN's occasionally doing like a graphically imposed trophy, but it hasn't felt like the finals. And like Richard Jefferson, no offense to you, but the lights are very bright for Richard Jefferson, is what I'm going to say.
Yeah. I do feel like my guy Richard Jefferson talks about the 2002 Nets too much.
Boy, does he ever. I tell you who's not going to ever talk about the 2002 Nets is NBC when we broadcast the NBA next year. And do not sue me the second we mention the 2002 Nets. Denny, do not sue me for being unhappy about Nick Chubb on the Houston Texans, because I may or may not I've traded a future third-round pick for this year's third-rounder to take Woody Marks because I needed a rookie back who might conceivably play this year. And now he apparently might not conceivably play this year because maybe they weren't comfortable with him as their number 2. They brought in Nicholas Chubb, hashtag best pure runner of his generation, Denny, until he was not, until the really, really awful knee injury. Yeah. He returned last year, but kind of just in name only. 102 carries in 8 games. The efficiency had totally vanished.
Yeah.
It was a net negative from a rush yards over expected perspective. The boomer yards per carry cratered from 5.3 to 3.3. Honestly, just a shell of his former self. If there's a bold case, I guess, is that he has a lot to bounce back to. Like, he fell far. The reason he fell so far is because he was so high to begin with. So even bouncing back like halfway to his prior form would be a big win. He's going to be another year removed from the injury. That's always good. But is Nick Chubb even going to make the team? Like, is he someone we really should be caring about in fantasy football? Someone we're even using like late round flyers on? What do you think on Nick Chubb?
Probably not as far as caring about him a whole lot for fantasy purposes. I mean, there's always the caveat of if you're in a crazy deep league, then sure, why not?
Texans only.
Texans only leagues, you got to at least consider him in the late rounds. No, you just talk about like the lack of efficiency. Last year in Cleveland, Nick Chubb had 102 carries. He had 5 carries of over 10 yards out of those 102. His yards after contact per attempt fell to 2.6. That's usually north of 4 for him. And that's a big gap, right? So we're talking about a guy who probably has lost his touch. And at best, you're looking at maybe a Kareem Hunt situation in Kansas City where he gets a few high value touches and kind of an early or a late down banger on 3rd and 4th and short. Beyond that, I don't see much for Chubb.
And the problem with the Hunt thing, I've seen that thrown around a few different places. Nick Chubb, of course, rather infamously does not catch passes.
No.
At all. Does not catch passes. And listen, it'd be one thing if he were just returning from the knee injury, but he's attempting to do so at will be age 30 in December. Right. He's attempting to do so with north of 1,300 career carries, probably 1,500 career touches. So at a stage of his career where he'd be declining even without the injury. And the fact that is coupled with coming back with what was apparently not a normal knee injury. It's just, I frankly don't even understand the signing for Houston. Joe Mixon guaranteed a lot of money. They used pretty decent draft capital on Woody Marks. I don't entirely understand the signing.
Maybe they saw one of those hype videos where Nick Chubb is bench pressing 6,000 pounds. And they were like, well, we got to have that guy.
So a bit strange, but yeah, I can't say. I don't see any case to be drafted. Would you rather have Woody Marks, the 4th round rookie, or Nick Chubb?
Marks. And the thing is, know your league and whatnot, but I'm pretty sure Nick Chubb is going to be drafted in a lot of leagues and probably a lot earlier than you think because he has such name recognition, right? And name value. Just beware of that. And honestly, give me Marks every time over Chubb.
Well, especially because Marks actually does catch passes.
He does.
He makes more sense as the change of pace option behind Joe Mixon. Is it bad for Joe Mixon? Could it be the kind of thing where Nick Chubb creates no fantasy value of his own, but say he handles 4 to 5 carries a week that might have gone to Nick Chubb. Like you said, maybe they're high value carries, like critical third downs, maybe at the goal line. Do we worry about this for Joe Mixon, or is this kind of keep your head down? Don't even pay attention to the name. The Texans signed a running back, but it doesn't really matter. Do you see any reason to worry for Joe Mixon?
One thing I've learned about Joe Mixon is that nothing is ever bad for Joe Mixon.
Truly, no.
Yeah. I mean, no signing, no injuries, nothing ever affects Joe Mixon. He's always there to make me regret not drafting him in fantasy. I overall, I'd say no, because the best case scenario here for Chubb is so slim that I'm okay just kind of forgetting about that part of it and saying, look, in almost every case, Mixon will be fine as a 20-touch lead back and probably a good Houston offense.
Woody Marks, I just you get to the facility early, leave late.
Yeah.
Look, don't ever fumble, please.
Oh, yeah.
Do not fumble.
Do not fumble.
If he fumbles once, Nick, even if he fumbles as like a joke, they're doing like a team skit on the stage. You know, they do that weird stuff at training camp. And he's like,
oh, man.
Do you guys think it's cool if I fumble in the skit? Like, fumbles in the skit, and Kevin Stefanski just shaking his head.
Yeah.
Woody Marks never touches the ball again. Do not do any of that, Woody Marks.
No, not Stefanski. D'Amico Ryans.
That's yeah, of course. I don't. Yeah, Nick Chubb on the mind there. But yeah, Woody, we need you so bad to change the pace for Joe Mixon. That's all I can tell you in my dynasty league. Denny, all I can tell you is that all we ever talk about is Jaxon Smith-Njigba. A guy who he's produced. He has actually produced in his 2 years in the league. Was a legit wide receiver 2 last year. Had some blow-up games, but he's someone where I feel like the amount of analysis and talk does not quite match the amount of production. We're just always talking about JSN, but that's because he has remained an ascending player. One thing all superstar receivers do is they move all over the field. The Athletic reports, they seem like they're planning to move JSN more all over the field this year. He didn't, not like a slot-only guy the first 2 years, but a lot in the slot. He has some production on the outside. But the Athletic reports he could be on the perimeter like a lot more this year. He also reports it's hard to cover Cooper Kupp over the middle of the field. But JSN, perimeter, I know you think this is bad. Why do we think this is bad? Well, whereas like superstar receivers, that should be good. He's playing all over the field. Why is this bad?
Yeah. Well, I don't sorry if you hear my dog. He's upset about this situation as well. Look, the Cooper Kupp signing bothered me because of this situation. Because last year the Rams were like, they bumped Cooper Kupp to the boundary and they were like, look, like get open if you can, I guess. But like this is Puka's offense now. And he didn't get open because he's not at that stage of his career. And he's also never been a great boundary receiver. So you bring Kupp into Seattle and where's he going to play? Of course he's going to go to the slot. Of course, right? And then JSN last year, 86% of his routes came from the slot. Okay. Like
a little higher than I thought. I was going to guess like 70.
No, man. It's like almost everyone. So he was top 15 in yards per route run from the slot. It was quite bad from the boundary. If I could find that real quick here.
Only top 15 from the slot is a little worse than I would have hoped too.
Yeah. I mean, it's the whole Seattle offense was kind of messed up. But last year, 85th out of 110 qualifying receivers in yards per route run from the boundary. He saw a target on only 20% of those boundary routes. I don't get it, but I will say this. If the Seahawks do what's right, eventually Kupp will be phased out and JSN will take his rightful place in the slot. I mean, with Kupp, you're talking about a guy who last year ranked 102nd out of 115 receivers in ESPN open score. Okay. Can't get open, doesn't create separation. Like I do have trust in Mike Macdonald and this Seattle coaching staff to do the right thing and put their star, I'm not saying superstar, but their star receiver in a good spot.
He's a star. We want him to be a superstar, though, is the thing. Last year, 137 targets for JSN, Denny. If I set the targets over under at 137 and a half, you taking the over or the under?
Under. Under. That's not what you wanted to hear, huh?
No, and I think it's right though. Like they're stone aging this offense.
Right.
They're stone aging it. Mike Macdonald, that must have been the worst experience of his entire life.
Like
watching Geno Smith be like a high attempts, like watching Ryan Grubb like try to be like a college spread guy. Like it must have like physically pained Mike Macdonald.
Yeah, the 50 dropbacks for 220 passing yards was not something Mike Macdonald enjoyed.
No, Mike Macdonald, pretty tough after 1 year to go to the GM. Like we're firing this guy.
We're firing everyone. We're getting rid of our quarterback.
Yes, and he did that. That's how disturbed he was by that entire experience. So I do have a hard time seeing JSN exceeding 137 targets, but it is such a narrow target tree. I mean, Cooper Kupp too. Let's be real. Will probably get hurt early in the season.
Right.
Ultimately, 150 targets is still very achievable for JSN. I just do worry about the overall nature of the offense.
There are a few paths to 140 plus targets for JSN. Okay. And that's good. And that's more than you can say about a lot of the guys who are going in his range, right? In the draft, right? The best case scenario is that I'm sorry to say this, I'm not wishing this, but Cooper Kupp misses time, right? I mean, the oft injured old Cooper Kupp misses more time, and then JSN just takes over as a dominant wide receiver one. That would also require Sam Darnold to be the quarterback. And if Sam Darnold loses that job to Jalen Milroe, then that path, I think, vanishes for JSN. Because Jalen Milroe is a rushing mobile quarterback. They're going to go ultra run heavy if he's under center. That's not good for Smith-Njigba.
I will say too, with JSN, him being like the only viable target could be like a careful what you wish for in fantasy. You're like, oh, he has no target competition, which means the defense can just take him away at will, basically. And hopefully he plays enough over the middle of the field where it doesn't really matter what the defense does and he gets those schemed open looks, or he's just very talented at finding the soft spots in the middle of the field. Might not matter as much then, but JSN, he hasn't struck me as the kind of guy who's like just putting the offense on his back, like going Shaq Kobe mode. And like, he needs to prove that like when he is the focal point of because like DK Metcalf occupying attention down the field, like that, say what you will about DK Metcalf, like he scares defenses down the field, which was very, very good for JSN over the middle. And to me, an entirely new dynamic for JSN being like the focus of the opposing defense.
Yeah. I mean, the Seahawks did invest at wide receiver in the draft. No
one cares. Not
possibly
really.
Those guys could emerge. I'm just trying. I'm trying for my Seahawks buddies.
Who was the highest Seahawks receiver draft pick? I'm looking at this right now.
But I mean, Kupp. To me, Kupp is just an absolute fade.
As a fifth rounder, by the way. Come on, have some dignity. A seventh rounder.
A fifth rounder?
Fifth rounder and a seventh rounder. Come on.
Oh, there was no way to know.
Torrey Horton's a fifth rounder.
Oh, we love our Torrey Horton from Colorado State.
We do love Torrey Horton.
Or Colorado, sorry.
We do not love Arthur Smith. He's evil. No, that's what fantasy managers think. They think of Art as like the source of all their problems in life. Like,
I know.
You're right. Like you look out this window, you see that Spirit Halloween. I'll tell you, that wouldn't be there if it weren't for a man by the name of Arthur Smith. He has ruined me. Arthur Smith has ruined so much.
Your life would have been so much better if Arthur Smith would have just gone to the CFL or something.
Just gone to the I don't even care if Kyle Pitts is good. Just throw him the ball. It doesn't matter.
Please.
Don't ever target Kyle Pitts.
No.
He's ruined so many fantasy dreams. Denny Carter, Arthur Smith. He loves to go slow. Aaron Rodgers loves to go slow more than anyone in the history of the NFL. But as Arthur Smith, he's a play action guy. That's kind of how he made his name with Ryan Tannehill. Could never really do it in Pittsburgh, in Atlanta. They had terrible quarterback play the entire time. I can't really remember Aaron Rodgers' history of play action. I feel like, didn't he not like it for some reason?
He does not like it. He has said that he does not like play action because it turns his back to the defense.
Yes.
And he desperately does not like that. And I think that some stats bear that out.
So, he doesn't like it. Art does like it. Is, in your words, going to doom the Aaron Rodgers-DK Metcalf connection before it even gets going.
There are a couple things at work here. Rodgers does not fit with Arthur Smith's traditional passing attack. I guess there's a possibility that Arthur Smith will say, okay, we're converting this thing to the Aaron Rodgers show. But I kind of doubt that. By the numbers here, the Steelers last year were 15th in play action pass attempts. On those pass attempts, they were 29th in adjusted yards per attempt. So just awful, really miserable. Maybe they should not do it. I don't know.
That's a Russell Wilson stat, I'll say.
And
rolling out of the Russ rolling out of the play action and gonna throw a moon ball now.
Right.
Well, basically, Russell Wilson doesn't need an even slower developing play style.
Yeah.
I'm not really surprised it didn't work.
So there were two quarterbacks who were less accurate than Aaron Rodgers on play action passes last year. Their names were Anthony Richardson and Bryce Young.
There's no way that's a real stat.
Yeah.
Also, I thought Bryce Young was good.
Well, he had a rough start to the season. So if you eliminate his bad plays, he was good. So remember that. That doesn't fit. And then there's the issue of the imprecise nature of DK Metcalf's route running. And we've talked about how, you don't see a quarterback dress down his star receiver very much anymore. You used to see it with Marino. You used to see it with Favre. These guys would just bark in their receivers' faces if the guy took one wrong step, right? You saw it last year every other week with Geno Smith and DK Metcalf, to the point where you're like, can someone step in and help out DK a little bit, man? The guy's being lectured like a child. And it was because he just sort of floats around the field, right? He doesn't like really run routes, apparently. Well, I know one guy in Aaron Rodgers who doesn't love that. And last year we saw it when Mike Williams ran one wrong route and he was thrown off the team the next week.
Rodgers insists on like a telepathic connection with his receivers. And wow, this is the natural endpoint of the Steelers dynasty. Like, I feel like it has been building toward something just totally incoherent like this. Like I know none of this makes sense on paper, but everything always seems to work for the Steelers in the end, and finally something didn't work. That's kind of what all this feels like. Right.
Yes. I mean, last year with the Mike Williams thing, he ran. So Rodgers absolutely ran the bus over him several times in his post-game press conference. Didn't even say his name. Just said the receiver was running on the wrong line, the red line, the black line, this and that.
And couldn't remember which Mike Williams it was, to be fair.
And so ESPN had to have a 6-minute segment deciding, was Rodgers right or wrong, and no one even knew at the end. So this DK Metcalf thing, I'm telling you, this is not this dynamic between a guy who doesn't run precise routes and Aaron Rodgers. That doesn't work. It's not going to work.
No, I wish I had a counter take, but I don't see how I do not see how Arthur Smith, Aaron Rodgers, DK Metcalf were. Or I don't see how any of them wanted it. Like how did my life get here? I guess they're all happy to still be in the NFL, but I feel like for all three of them, it's kind of like, how did I end up here?
Brooke Pryor of ESPN said that she went to a local sandwich shop in Pittsburgh to ask folks if they were excited about Aaron Rodgers signing with the Steelers. And the first lady she talked to said, I hope he's benched by week 8.
Wow.
Where the fit is not going to work, I don't think.
The fit is not going to work. Continuing the show without a short break wasn't going to work. We'll be right back after this. Since there is no longer an off season in the NFL, stay dialed in with us on the NBC Sports Now channel. Join Dan Patrick, Mike Florio, Chris Sims, Matthew Berry, and us from the Rotoworld Football Show for more insight on the biggest news and stories around the league. For more details, visit NBCSports.com/now. Denny, yeah, boy, what did I even write here, man? Baker bump? What is this supposed to mean? So, Trevor Lawrence, though. So first off, we've been hearing nothing but positive things from Trevor Lawrence coming out of Jaguar spring practices. But then they're like, oh, yeah, no, he's hurt. He's sore. He's got arm soreness. Like, all right, that's kind of weird and random. But general arm soreness, they're not concerned. They're praising his newfound command of the offense. They're putting him in charge of the offense. Highest paid player, one of the highest paid players in the history of North American sports. Maybe he should be in charge of the offense. They're liking the way he's taking command. They're liking his footwork. Liam Coen said he's operating the offense at a high level. First off, I would hope he's doing so in shorts and t-shirts at 270 mil. So kind of condescending in a way, but
it's not good. The vibe is rancid. Let's just be honest.
It is. It's rancid, but say it actually is good. We get the Baker Mayfield bump, a player who was far more left for dead than Trevor Lawrence has been. Like Trevor Lawrence, people are very skeptical. They're concerned, but he has not been left for dead. Baker Mayfield was left for dead. He was revived first by Dave Canales, but then also by Liam Coen. If Liam Coen can do even half that Baker Mayfield magic with Trevor Lawrence, what would that mean? What would that look like in fantasy football?
I mean, it would be good for Brian Thomas and Brenton Strange and Travis Hunter. That's that.
Hold time out. Did you really just say Brenton Strange? Before?
I was going to say
that was a deliberate choice. That was a deliberate choice. Wait, it.
I was trying to come up with Evan Ingram, and then I was like, no, wait. Ingram plays for Denver now, so I had to say. So in my mind, I'm like, who's tight end? Oh, Strange. Okay,
Brenton Strange before Travis Hunter.
No offense to Travis Hunter, who is not just a generational talent, but a transcendent talent, the most important player in the history of North American sports. And so Trevor Lawrence, maybe the footwork could be better, because last year he was kind of a sitting duck in the Jacksonville backfield. Averaged 3.9 yards per attempt when under pressure. Only Anthony Richardson was worse. By the way, every quarterback stat I reference, every single one ends with only Anthony Richardson was worse. Every one. Man, it's amazing.
That is.
Anyway, T-Law, as the kids are calling him, was 18% below his expected completion rate when under pressure. That was the worst in the NFL. Okay, there's one. Anthony Richardson, he got him on that one. And then Lawrence was sacked on 23% of his pressures. So maybe an improvement in footwork. Maybe we can improve it in those metrics a little bit. And honestly, maybe get the Jacksonville offense, going a little bit on the field, on time, things of that nature.
Man, there are so many nightmare outcomes for Trevor Lawrence, and a really concerning one is that it wasn't Liam Coen. It was just Baker Mayfield. Like, Baker Mayfield's just good, and it wasn't even Dave Canales for him. The Bucs offense was actually just the Baker Mayfield offense all along. It would be very, very concerning for Trevor Lawrence, but he at least has a head coach now who's an offensive-minded head coach. I mean, Doug Peterson was an offensive-minded head coach. Like I've said, Doug Peterson was an offensive-minded head coach, but he seemed out of good ideas. He wasn't really operating as like a quarterback's coach type offensive coordinator. Like Liam Coen is almost like a personal quarterback's coach.
Yeah.
For Trevor Lawrence. So a guy who's Doug Peterson's sole job was not Trevor Lawrence. Liam Cohen's sole job is almost making Trevor Lawrence good.
Oh, it absolutely is. I mean, it's just the same way Carolina charged Dave Canales with saving Bryce Young. And I know you're a hater and a skeptic, but I think he might just do it.
So Trevor Lawrence, QB 18 in summer best ball drafts. So only one spot ahead of J.J. McCarthy. It seems like a lot of faith in J.J. McCarthy, maybe a lack of faith in Trevor Lawrence. He's going directly behind Drake May, Justin Herbert, Jordan Love. Do you take T-Law over any of those three?
Probably over Jordan Love.
Man, these QB ADPs are these are interesting.
These are maybe over Herbert. I don't know, but in best ball, the only compelling reason to go after Trevor Lawrence is if you're stacking him with both of his main pass catchers, not Brenton Strange, necessarily, but Travis Hunter and Brian Thomas. So that's the only case I can make for that. I actually got auto drafted Trevor Lawrence in a best ball league the other day. So I have what's called a naked Trevor Lawrence without any of his pass catchers, and I've never been more devastated in my life.
That team's going nowhere. Trevor Lawrence too. I could see it being one of those situations. I don't know. Where it's like, even if he takes a step forward in real life, finally, it doesn't necessarily translate to fantasy value, but it's been 4 years in the league and he's never thrown for more than 25 touchdowns. Like, a little bit hard to believe he's become like a true, because he's not, it's not like he never runs. He runs the ball in sometimes, but he's not a dual threat. He has 14 career rushing touchdowns. That's over 4 years though. Like, even if he gets to 33 touchdowns, I guess he'd be a top 10 quarterback if he threw for 33 touchdowns, I guess. But he doesn't need to just take a statistical leap. He needs to take a huge statistical leap.
Yeah.
Even if Trevor Lawrence gets a lot better, I'm not entirely sure what it gets you in fantasy.
Yeah, I mean, he strikes me increasingly as a quarterback who requires perfect conditions, and maybe Liam Coen can do some sort of facsimile of that, but it's not. I don't think it's a great long-term outlook, honestly.
Not great pretty best conditions he's ever had though this year. Where star wide receiver in Brian Thomas Jr., a number 2 overall wide receiver, a head coach who's there solely to call plays for him. It is kind of like, if not this year, it's never happening for Trevor Lawrence.
That might be true, yeah.
Denny is Jaylen Wright, who there's been recent news items on. Seems like he's locking himself in as the Dolphins' RB2. Is he like a perfect 0 RB type target behind Devin Achane, also known as Jerome Bettis, who apparently is going to handle even more work this year? We don't think he's really built for that. Is this where Jaylen Wright steps in as one of the ultimate 0 RB targets of the summer?
Yeah, because it's all about contingency, right? And the contingency that here is that Jaylen Wright would presumably inherit like a pretty solid RB1 role in an offense that's very friendly for running backs, both from a pass catching standpoint and from a rushing standpoint. You're not going to have to pay like a heavy price, for a guy like Wright. I guess if you want to, shore up the Dolphins backfield, if you get Achane and get Wright later, I guess that's fine. But honestly, you probably shouldn't do that, like for various reasons I'm not going to get into. If you're drafting going to 0 RB or hero RB or whatever, you're right, Pat. Wright makes all the sense in the world.
Our two most recent headlines on Jaylen Wright are either expected to carry more of the load in 2025. We like that a lot. But Jaylen Wright entering 2025 in better shape. That's the classic. Like, would have preferred maybe you were in good shape as a rookie.
Yeah.
And like, what exactly did you think your job was?
Why
when you were drafted into the National Football League?
Yeah.
Did you think it didn't have to do with your body?
Well, some of these guys are so talented and so far above the competition in high school and college that they don't really realize that you have to be, totally committed going into the league. I remember reading this thing about Brandon Ayuk having that sort of mindset, like I've gotten by doing nothing, so I'm just going to continue to do nothing. And guess what? Kyle Shanahan wasn't happy with that. He
was not happy with that. Are we happy with Rashod Bateman, by the way? Another extension. I forgot this was his second extension. In
so many extensions.
So many extensions. So many catches for the first time ever in his career. But the problem for Rashod Bateman is that so many catches was still like 50, or 45 actually. 45, yeah. Rashod Bateman. So he finally did something last year. Stayed healthy. Also 756 yards, 9 touchdowns. Was that Rashod Bateman's absolute peak, or is there more juice to be squeezed here? For a player who is currently, Denny, the wide receiver 57 in summer best ball drafts.
You're not going to have any fun drafting him in redraft. I mean,
no.
I mean, trying to figure out, like, is this the week that my guy Bateman hits a 65-yard touchdown? I mean, that's going to be miserable. So better in best ball, obviously. Makes the most sense if you're doing the Ravens thing and you have Lamar and Mark Andrews or Likely and Flowers, all that stuff, right? So that's just, let's get that out of the way. But Bateman, structurally, he's not in a position to really succeed because the Ravens last year were relatively, compared to previous seasons, pass heavy-ish, and they were still 31st in pass attempts. Only the Eagles had fewer pass attempts. Just for context purposes, Baltimore had 185 fewer pass attempts than the Browns, who led the league last year. Bateman had an ADOT, average depth of target, of 14. He was targeted on only 16% of his routes on the boundary. Like, you're just hoping for that splash play. I think so. From a real football standpoint, I think a good signing. I'll say that. I'll put my GM hat on and say, yeah, excellent. From a fantasy standpoint, I don't care.
He could be this generation's Diami Brown. Who this generation's Diami Brown is, according to the Jaguars? It's Diami Brown.
Diami Brown.
It's Diami. Who, curiously, you did not mention in your Trevor Lawrence segment at all.
Gosh,
they got BTJ. They got Britton Strange. They got Travis Hunter. Like, Denny, why did you say that so quickly? Why did you just speed through the Travis Hunter thing?
I should have said Parker Washington.
Exactly. You did not say Diami Brown. Rashod Bateman, I've never seen a less repeatable stat than his 9 touchdowns from last year. So not fun in redraft. He's a bib pick. Better in best ball.
Oh, okay, that's good.
Better in best ball. We're a break time. God. We'll be right back after this. Scotty Scheffler, Rory McIlroy, and more of the world's best golfers take aim at Oakmont Country Club this week in the third major of the PGA season. It is the incomparable, the one, the only U.S. Open, live on NBC, USA, and Peacock. Denny, just by the way, just these guys are going to suffer, right? That's all I care about.
Oh, the rough is insane.
I've been hearing tell of the rough.
It is. It's like basically it's a penalty stroke if you hit it in the rough. I get the feeling that if I were to try to hit like a sand wedge out of this rough, that I would instantly break both wrists.
I want these guys to suffer.
They're going to suffer.
I want the outcome to be totally random.
Dude, the winning score here, like 15 years ago for the U.S. Open, was +5.
Wow.
Yeah.
That was Oakmont. I remember the truly terrible U.S. Open, like crazy one.
Yeah.
I'm hoping we get more history here in NBC. But on Sunday, like there's yet another random new Swedish guy I haven't heard of who is winning our United States Open.
There are so many Scandinavian guys you've never heard of and that you're going to hear about on this weekend.
My dad has always heard of. I was like, hey, you've never heard of I can't think.
Right. I haven't thought of anything else but Nicholas Hogard for the last 3 months, and yet you've never heard of him.
Very, very curious. Very curious that you haven't heard of these mid-round wide receiver values. Denny Carter has an article up on it on Rotoworld. By the way, why do you need mid-round receiver values if all you're doing is taking early receivers?
You know what? I span across the ideological spectrum when it comes to fantasy football. If you choose to go running back heavy, I'm here for you. So
give us the crux of the article and then give us your first mid-round wide receiver value.
Yeah, so the article, I write it every year, and honestly probably will update it as things change because things will change over the next 3 months. Keep it locked in to Rotoworld for those updates. Anyway, so if you decide to take 2 or 3 running backs in the first 3 rounds, you do you, and maybe target these guys as what I see as wide receivers who have underrated target upside in their respective offenses. Does that make sense?
It makes a lot of sense. And it's a really good concept to focus on every year. Like, so we're not replaying last season. We're replaying this season, trying to predict. It's easy to predict what already happened. We're trying to predict what might happen, what has not happened, Denny.
Right. Should we start with Jakobi Meyers?
No, actually, no. We should start with Calvin Ridley.
Who's
been in the news a lot lately. Like lots of reports, like report Calvin Ridley might still be good. Or report it might actually work this time with Calvin Ridley. Report Cam Ward has heard of Calvin Ridley. Why is Calvin Ridley? He's the biggest name in your article. Why might it finally, after half a decade, work for him?
I know. Shortly after we podcasted and said people are still chasing that 2019 Calvin Ridley season, I then wrote this article. So,
and then Cam Ward is writing this article every day, though. Where like, yeah, Calvin Ridley might be good.
All right. So Cam Ward, for those of you who may have missed it, my video on demand on this topic actually, wow. Cam Ward called Ridley quote a dog, which is important.
You like that? That's big. That is big.
And he said that he is a top 5 receiver at worst. At worst.
Wow. Wow. Right.
So, are you going to trust a couple of fantasy football podcasts? Or are you going to trust Cam Ward? That's my question.
You going to trust a couple of losers? Or are you going to trust Cam Ward?
I mean, Pat and I are on film trying to connect as me, the quarterback, and him, the receiver, and it didn't work. So don't listen to us.
It didn't. I just kept running. I won my route too easily in my defense, and then I just kept running.
Your route running was very DK Metcalf-esque.
It was. It really, 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 really.
And that's why I had to scream at you afterwards.
Yeah, that's true. Sorry.
So Ridley, and you guys are gonna love this. Ridley led the NFL in air yards last year.
Stop.
You didn't get any fantasy points for those. He was
Spirit Halloween.
No, you did. You got that. You had to trade in your car, unfortunately, but because of that, he was.
They don't even make Saturns anymore, and I'm driving a Saturn.
Saturn. He was 6th in downfield receptions, despite Will Levis being just absolutely horrendous on deep balls. And honestly, the thing is here, he's wide receiver 32 going off the board. It probably can't get worse. I mean, Cam Ward could be.
It's gotten worse every year with Calvin Ridley. Is the thing, though. We love Cam Ward, but
I do.
It's just Calvin Ridley. It's like, how many different ways can he fail? Like, lots of bad setups, but wasn't that bad in Jacksonville. Like, just like, how many different ways can this guy fail? Kind of. Not trying to be a hater, but it is.
No, I know. It's
crazy.
Remember the highlight reel of almost touchdowns for Calvin Ridley?
We were huge haters on that one.
Every one of which would have been the single greatest catch in NFL history.
Well, remember, that was supposed to be a Trevor Lawrence tweet.
It was, yeah.
As receivers, they could just become the Matrix. Then Trevor Lawrence would be amazing.
That actually was the argument. Anyway, so Ridley has like almost no target competition in Tennessee. The upside case here is that Bill Callahan just lets it rip and says, fine, like we're going to let the rookie drop back 40 plus times a game. He's going to throw. Listen, Cam Ward, no matter what they say, and you're going to hear this. You're going to hear this from the Titans coaches throughout the summer. They're going to say, we want him short, throwing short and safe and making the good, respectable play. He's never going to do that.
Yeah, never happening. No,
never. Like his whole profile is never doing that. Okay. So they drafted the wrong guy. They should have drafted Shedeur Sanders in the 10th round if they wanted to do that. I'm hearing there is no 10th round.
There's no 10th round. But hearing there's no target competition, guess who you just gave bulletin board fodder to? Xavier Restrepo is listening.
Yeah, Restrepo was a teammate of Cam Ward's and an absolute lock for 120 targets this year.
I heard what you just said. Sorry, I interrupted your train of thought. Any final words on Calvin Ridley?
No, I really do see him as like kind of a must-get guy if you don't stop making that face. If honestly, like if you spend 2 or 3 picks up top on running back or other positions, like you have no choice but to rely on the upside case for Calvin Ridley.
Denny, this next guy, he shouldn't be, but he's the best receiver on his team. That says kind of bad things about the team. But Khalil Shakir, his ADP is not commiserate maybe with what he is, which is Josh Allen's number 1 wide receiver. 800 yards last year, only 4 touchdowns. He is currently the wide receiver. I can't type.
44.
Okay. Yep. Khalil Shakir, why is he mid-round receiver value?
I mean, they paid him this offseason over a 10-week span where he basically, in that span, he emerged as kind of the de facto wide receiver 1 for Josh Allen. He saw a target on 27% of his routes. That's strong. That's really strong. And against zone defenses, which the Bills face almost at a league high rate, he saw a target on almost 30% of his routes. So he's really like a go-to, like quick target guy for Allen. For standard or half PPR, I don't know if he has a lot of luster, but for PPR purposes, he's kind of a slot machine. And again, like where's the competition coming from here with the Bills? Like they have Dalton Kincaid and they have Keon Coleman, and I'm not afraid of those guys.
And the Bills, talk about a team that is needed someone that could just run right by the zone or the 2 high safeties. There's never been a team that in greater need of someone that can just run right by the safeties.
I agree. You would have thought MVS could have fit that bill, but he did not.
I would simply just run directly past the safety.
Truly, though. Get someone fast. Oh, my gosh. You put Rashid Shaheed on that team, it's completely over.
Khalil Shakir is the wide receiver 45, by the way. It feels like the classic ADP where you understand how it happens. I think everyone probably knows he'll produce better than the wide receiver 45, but there's other higher upside in theory targets you want to take, flyers you want to take. And like he's the classic, well, okay, if he outproduces ADP, what he's going to be the wide receiver 42? Guess what? I don't care about missing out on that. But I feel like he could outproduce his ADP by 10 or 12 receiver slots.
I think that's conservative. Yeah.
Yeah. It feels like a very, very conservative, bearish ADP. Josh Downs. Listen, we never compared Josh Downs to Antonio Brown. We never did that. But
I did.
Kyle and I kind of did.
Yeah,
you actually didn't. He's the wide receiver 48. Anthony Richardson. Every day we're getting report. It's even more over than previously thought for Anthony Richardson. It's not going to be Anthony Richardson. It's going to be a more conventional quarterback, Daniel Jones, who is also not good and also not a good. He's only more conventional than Anthony Richardson. He's not conventional. He's not like a high attempts guy. He's more accurate, though. Josh Downs, why is he mid-round receiver value, Denny?
Yeah. Josh Downs, I think, has a lot of target upside along with Michael Pittman if Daniel Jones plays the whole year. And that's a stretch, I think, because the injury situation, because he's bad, things of that nature. So
who's the Colts number 3? I'm looking it up while you speak.
By the way, it's today at Colts minicamp, the coaches were basically like, yeah, I think Anthony's on the West Coast right now. I'm not sure. It's
the number 3 is your guy. By the way, Riley Taysom Hill Leonard is the number 3 for the Colts.
Oh, and in that case, it is completely over for Josh Downs, just to be clear.
Yes,
but it's on for for Leonard, who will run for 100 yards a game.
So Josh Downs is just about, it's not Anthony Richardson, it's Daniel Jones, who at least throws the ball sometimes, at least completes the ball sometimes. And that was borne out with Josh Downs, where anytime anyone who was not Anthony Richardson played quarterback for the Colts, he was stacking PPR receptions.
It was good. It was pretty fun for PPR.
Things have been going in the wrong direction too for Michael Pittman. So Josh Downs, not giving up hope on Josh Downs. Totally agree on him. It's a very intriguing mid-round.
Josh Downs, a high separation rate, high targets per route run. It's a good profile.
Danny, the other two guys in your article, we've talked about Luther Burden a lot lately. You can add any thoughts if you have any extra ones on him, but I know you want to talk about Jakobi Meyers. We will not end the show without letting you talk about Jakobi Meyers. The final two guys in your article, Jack Myers, Luther Burden.
Yeah, you guys can check out the article on Burden. It basically just talks about Keenan Allen's vacated role in the Bears offense. Jakobi Meyers, I guess he would be a prime beneficiary of a Raiders offense that is slightly more pass heavy and maybe slightly more efficient than folks are projecting. Last year Myers quietly finished 15th in wideout targets and 12th in receptions. Like, wow, what?
That is insane. I had no recollection of that.
I had to look it up 4 times. Myers commanded a target on almost 22% of his pass routes last year. Not spectacular, but considering that he had to fight for targets with Brock Bowers, who's just a target vacuum, I think that's respectable. Myers doesn't excite me the way that, like, I know this sounds crazy, but like a guy like Ridley would, but because he doesn't have the downfield stuff. He just doesn't. But overall, you could do worse if you start out running back heavy in your draft.
I'd say the target vacuum thing with Brock Bowers, this is gonna be really galaxy brain. I don't even know if I know how to like enunciate what I'm trying to say, but like when there's someone like Brock Bowers where everything revolves around him, they tend to like have like moons attach themselves to them, where like their power, their center of gravity is so strong that they kind of bring another target guy along for the ride. Like Jakobi Meyers is definitely like the guy along for the Brock Bowers ride. Like Brock's gonna be covered sometimes, so then I'm open over the middle of the field, where I don't even necessarily think it's a bad thing. Like there's so much defensive attention concentrated on Brock Bowers. Like, all right, every time they bracket Brock Bowers, I'm just throwing it to Jakobi Meyers.
Absolutely.
He's also, like a moon orbiting Brock Bowers.
I got to say, for reasons that I can't enunciate, Jakobi Meyers is a Geno Smith guy through and through.
He's the dog levels guy as well.
Just give me that combo. That combo's good.
I totally agree with he's a dog levels guy. Someone who will not be getting chewed out by Geno.
No, I don't think so.
Jakobi Meyers. Denny not getting chewed out because he had good content. Yeah, we get off the air like, nope, man, not joke anymore. So Denny, really, really good stuff. Check out the article. Check out my GM rankings.
Yes,
if you want to still. Check out my podcast, Kevin Clark. I don't know if you ever heard of him, but
I'll look into him.
You look into them. Look into rotoworld.com. All the latest NFL news and updates, some in written form, some in video form. So check it out. For Denny, I'm Pat. We'll be back on Thursday with our friend and colleague, Kyle Dvorchak.